Thundergrunts.
Welcome to Writers Blockbusters, the show where we treat the final edit of a movie like the script. I'm one of the hosts, Bob Rose, and with me are two other guys that are going to introduce themselves.
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and script consultant. My Twitter handle is @JimmyRGeorge, and we are rusty.
Yeah.
I am Jamie Nash. I am a screenwriter. I also wrote a book called that you'll hear a lot about for the rest of this podcast if you listen. Called Save the Cat Rights for TV. Available at Amazon and where you buy books.
And I'm Bob Rose. I'm at Thundergrunt Bob on Twitter. And yes, we are a little rusty. We haven't recorded an episode for 3 months because we all had different things we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're back. And interestingly enough, on a fresh restart, we're back to a filmmaker that started the show. Our first episode of Writers Blockbusters ever, which was almost 5 years ago at this point.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, February 2018, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. So we started.
I was in fourth grade.
Yeah, Jamie was a mere 3
I failed
feet tall.
a lot though. It's just
Jamie was 3 feet tall and wearing
graduated high school till I was in my 40s. Yeah.
Right. So when we started this whole enterprise with Get Out, which I still think is, I think that's an episode that people even talk to me about a lot, even now.
Really?
When they talk about the show. When we did Us, of course, and now we're going to do Nope. It's a good way to come back, right?
Yep.
Yep. Jesus. Good. We got that joke out of the way.
Come on.
Yeah. So before we get into our discussion points, let's do what we always do and just let's keep it short and sweet. Go around the table and say what we thought about the movie. Let's start with Jamie.
I really enjoyed it. I knew nothing about it going in. I stayed away from, I think I saw the trailer of somebody getting sucked into the sky or something like that. But I've been doing a really good job. I'm not as interested in trailers as I was in my youth. That's a cousin Vinny.
Oh yeah.
I think
we could do that one day. We could do an episode.
Yes.
So yeah, I get anyway. So I really enjoyed it. That's all I'll say.
Okay, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I thought about the short and sweet part, so I just cut it short.
I'll try to keep this short and sweet as well. I liked it. I liked it a lot. The second time I saw it, I just rewatched it yesterday for the podcast. I liked it a lot more the second upon rewatch. The one thing I have a few issues with is the script, of course. I think
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that part. But if we get to it, it might not even be the script. It might just be the edit. If we get to that, I think the performers, the aesthetics, the production design team, the score, the effects, the direction, all elevate the material when it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple script. And but I really enjoyed it. There's a few things I feel like it drops the ball in the third act a bit thematically, but I'm trying to stay curious and see if maybe there's some stuff that I just didn't connect with that you guys picked up on and that we can like hash out together. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just I have a few issues with the script. So
cool. I don't want to be like the three. I really enjoyed it, guys, but I did really enjoy it. I've only seen it once. This is a sad thing for me is this is like a movie I almost wish I could watch like 5 times and then do this episode. Like watching this once and doing this episode for me feels wrong. I think that this is a movie that you have to absorb a few times. You know, it's just I was like when I walked out of the theater, I was like, I really enjoyed that, but I know it needs more time. I know I need
a
to give it
second
more
run.
love. Yeah, there's just some stuff where I just don't feel right talking about it. So I kind of feel like that right now. I think I'll end up loving this movie like to the max with more time given. But I'm not there yet.
You can't unless you, yeah.
I just, and that movies are meant to be rewatched, in my opinion. Like,
you know what? I suggest we end this episode right now and come back in a few weeks. Okay, thanks.
That's it.
All right, see everybody in a couple months. So I'm not trying to be a downer with that, but there's some movies that feel like one watch is just not enough to talk about it. I'm the guy that always hated when Jamie's been at press screenings with me. I hated when you walk out of the door and they ask you what your opinion is. I'm like, that's a nothing opinion. You got to give me time. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think there's more to be had with rewatches and more things to be noticed and stuff like that I am not there yet. And I would guess that you guys aren't either, because Jamie, you've seen it once, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and Jimmy, you're twice, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're on Jimmy's back here. But so we all enjoyed it regardless.
By the way, pro tip, if you ever go to one of those press screenings and they ask you that question, come up with some ridiculous thing you liked about it, because they do go up the chain to the press people, and who knows, there might be some weird change they do to the marketing or something.
Say something that has nothing to do with the movie. I love that part.
Come in with a plan to say something really ridiculous, and you'll have a lot more fun.
I used to do the titular line. I used to be like, I love when the guy said nope. You know, like that would be my review. Because I really just wanted the guy to leave me alone that was talking to me. All right. Jamie, who wrote this shit? Duh.
You know what? I double checked it just to make sure. But Jordan Peele directed this and wrote it as well. So he is the writer director. I don't think has he ever co-written with Key for like
Keanu, but
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Was that co-written? Because I was about to say he's only written by himself, but I think
he's a co-writer on the Candyman reboot.
Oh, really?
Be,
but I don't want to. Maybe story.
The comedy with like Key and Peele and stuff was co-written.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I know these three movies, his recent M. Night cycle or whatever we want to call it, as far as people say it, his blockbuster horror career. He's written those solo all by himself. So
he wrote Keanu with somebody else, but apparently not Keegan. I didn't know that.
Huh.
Right.
That's
Jamie, what's the box office on this stuff here?
The box office, and I wanted to point something out about this too.
Yeah.
The worldwide box office is $135 million. The U.S. gross is 115, which is interesting. That means only 20 million, from the world beyond the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that a strange thing?
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to point out that I saw articles about, that this would have never occurred to me until I saw the articles. This is the most money an original screenplay has made since, guess what movie?
Us?
Yes, Us.
Wow.
Isn't that's both sad and interesting, right?
Sad and interesting.
It's sad, but also awesome for Peele.
For him, for sure.
So, and here's the other thing that I think is notable about this one. I think this is the first non-Blumhouse of the three.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if you look at the budget, you can kind of see why. Jason Blum doesn't play $68 million movies. That's not his form. Like if he could have brought
this 5, right?
Yeah, Get Out was 5. I'm sure Us was in the 30s or something, or 20s. This is 68. So I'm sure Jason tapped out once he saw the price go over 20 million.
That's awesome because it's like a mid-budget horror thriller movie that made that much money, which is very rare now, right? Like we don't get mid-budget movies as much anymore.
The only thing I'd say about it though is once you get into the 70 million territory, I think this becomes a single. You know what I mean? So like Get Out makes 135 million worldwide. That's That's a solid triple. But this is a single probably. I could even see 5 years down the road somebody being like, yeah, that movie was a bust and it made 135 million, 150 million dollars. But I don't know. It's probably a hit. It's probably definitely enough. Is it enough to like keep going down this direction for a studio? I don't know. Yeah. They probably would prefer the $5 million movie that makes $150 million, you know?
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I'm sure he's not going to be hurting for jobs. So
good.
Way, yeah. And he could probably make an incredible. We know he can make an incredible $5 million movie. So he's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's. That's everything, right? For the info.
That's it.
Remember, everybody, we're rusty. It's been a minute since
There's people out there like, this is what you sound like every time.
Yeah, this sounds the same. You always sound like, even when you weren't rusty, even when you're well oiled. So you want to talk about, do horror movies have to be a monster in the house, quote unquote?
Yeah, let's talk about monster in the house, because when I was sitting there watching, these are the weird thoughts that go through my head.
Sure.
I was like, well, this is a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And there's these save the cat genres, and we talk about them all the time on this podcast. But if you're new, save the cat genres are kind of story patterns. They're like there's I think 10 of them. I always forget the number of how many there are, but I think there's 10 of them, and they help you when you brainstorm. Like, let's say you want to make a UFO movie, and you're debating, what kind of UFO movie do I want to write? You can take these patterns and brainstorm your own UFO movie. So to give you some examples, there's a buddy love or romantic comedies, friendship stories. Maybe that's E.T. Now I'm gonna be forced to improv what the alien version of all these things are.
You did this to yourself.
I did. I totally did myself. So then there's and this is the one I can't off the top of my head think of. There's the Golden Fleece, and the Golden Fleece are quest stories, or stories about some sports stories become about it. So it's somebody trying to achieve a goal or a trophy or something like that. A lot of epics fall into that. Maybe Star Wars, for example, if you want to go sci-fi a little bit. I don't know, maybe Stargate. I don't remember Stargate, but I'm trying to do the alien thing. But also like sports movies like League of Their Own, things that might have a season. It's basically the road trip movies, things like that. Paul, the alien movie. No,
yeah. I love Paul.
I love Paul.
Yeah, it's a road trip movie.
Yeah.
So
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber, but also an alien. No, it's not. So that's another one. And then there's one called a Monster in the House movie, and Monster in the House movies are most horror movies. So Alien is an example Blake Snyder has in his book, and they're usually movies that have a few elements that we're going to talk about. So the elements are, there's a monster, there's some kind of monster that's attacking people, there's a house that somehow the hero is trapped in, and you know they're the two essential elements, and then there's usually a sin that brings about the monster, whether it's like corporate greed like an Alien or something like that, or even corporate greed or citywide greed in Jaws, for example. Mm-hmm. When I was watching this movie, so here's the big thing. So almost all horror movies that we've ever done on this podcast have been Monster in the House movies. I can't think of an exception off the top of my head. But when I was watching this movie, I was like, here's the thing that makes the Monster in the House movie a Monster in the House movie. It's being trapped. It's taking away your free will. It's not being able to escape the monster. Your free will is taken away. You cannot get away for some reason. This movie, they can. Mm-hmm. So that makes me think it's not a Monster in the House movie. That makes me think it is a Golden Fleece movie.
Because they're trying to capture.
They're trying to get a picture. That's the trophy they're after. Now, it has elements of a Monster in the House movie, many elements. But I think that very piece makes this a Golden Fleece movie and not a Monster in the House movie.
That's so interesting.
You can make
Yes.
a maybe mild argument that looking at that OJ is somewhat trapped by his loyalty to his family and their business and trying to save that.
I would say
like it's not a house, but you could argue that.
I would say though all movies have that trap that's called the stakes, you know.
Yeah.
So even like Happy Gilmore, he has to save his grandma or
Grandma's
house.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, I mean, it has all the elements. Yeah. It's not quite the same.
That's so
And
yeah.
And the whole time I was watching this, that's all I could think about. And I missed most of the movie. So that's it. I'm out of here.
And you just walk
no,
out
that's a
after
good
that.
point.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's great.
So-
We've talked about that so much on the show.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yeah. And one movie I wanted to, and while I was watching this movie, I started to think of other movies that were similar but different. And the Blair Witch Project comes to mind. Like they have a camera, they're trying to film and capture stuff, and but they're trapped. They start out that way, they enter it, but then they're trapped. And their free will is taken away. And that's what turns it into a Monster in the House movie as opposed to a Golden Fleece movie. But if they could get out anytime they wanted, then I think it would be more of a Golden Fleece movie.
That's so.
It's
wow.
Jamie's
throwing me for a loop. I love it.
Yeah,
they're the hunters. It's the hunter versus the hunted. I think is the way I say it.
I'm not trying to jump ahead, but it's the themes and of what the characters and what it's supposed to be saying that makes it not matter that they're trapped or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, the things we're going to talk about, it has many elements of a Monster in the House movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Many elements of the monster. So maybe it's kind of a bit of a splice, but I still think its driving factor is a Golden Fleece movie.
It's just, you're right. That's definitely, that kind of speaks to it. So I listened to a bunch of interviews with him, and the first thing that informs this discussion is these are the movies that he had his cast watch in preparation. He had the core group watch these 6 movies.
I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Well, I only have 2 guesses really off the top of my head.
All right. I could guess one, but
okay, go. Let's see if you guys get a couple.
Close Encounters.
That's the number 1.
That's what I would have guessed.
Jaws.
That's the number 2.
Okay, never that.
All right. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws, No Country for Old Men, which I haven't seen.
Oh man, yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey, Alien, and King Kong. So those kind of inform.
Yeah.
You know.
So
the
other
tapestry of influences.
But besides the Blair Witch, I wanted to point out Jaws because this has a lot of similarities to
so much like Jaws.
But what the similarities in this movie? Here's where I was. My head was going when I was watching this movie. I was like, well, this feels like Jaws. Why is Jaws a monster in the house? And the reason I figured out in my head, this is my theory, is where are we at the lock-in moment? And the lock-in moment, as we've talked about many times on the show, is kind of when the first act ends and the story that we're there to watch is set up before us. Like, what is the lock-in moment? This movie, I peg it as we got to get the Oprah shot, right? As the lock-in moment.
Really?
Somewhere in there.
That's what I would have said.
Yeah. Because that's when they have that's when they have a goal. And in Jaws, it's we got to save we're gonna die. We're trapped. There's a monster. We gotta stop the monster.
Yeah.
So that's this thing eating kids. Right?
So, but then there's a new lock-in Jaws in Act 3 where they're like, we gotta kill the monster, and then it becomes like this movie. But that's Act 3. That's not Act 2. So that's where my head is with this movie.
Gotcha.
I'm
going to bring that back up when we talk about structure a little later because I'm going to argue against that.
Yeah, and I would say I didn't really analyze this movie too much for structure that much. Like I didn't really break it down as I was watching it like I normally do. So yeah, maybe you'll surprise me. But that's the first
I would
hint
argue
of
that this movie is more about theme than Jaws is.
Mm-hmm.
Way heavier. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. Its goal is that, whereas I feel like for Jaws, it's almost a secondary goal. Like Jaws, I think is still a monster movie first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jaws has a serious sin. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it
as does Alien.
It works like that first and foremost, but there's plenty to crack open, and that has meaning and about the characters and the themes and everything. The cold open, the monster kill. You want to talk about that, Jamie?
Yeah. Well, is there any monster in the house stuff we want to briefly touch on while we're here, and then I can jump back because that'll take us a little different.
I wanted to talk about the sin.
Okay.
I wanted to see.
Yeah,
let's do that.
I wanted to see. First, Jamie, if you want to set up the sin just as a refresh, and then see what you guys think, and then I have Jordan's own explanation. But I kind of wanted to see what you guys thought before.
Yeah, don't tell us the explanation before.
Yeah. So, Jamie, you want to set up the sin?
Yeah. So, the sin in the Monster in the House movie is the thing that brings about the monster. And it really is a differentiator. It's funny. I just wrote a Monster in the House movie that didn't have a sin, and it bugged me so much. And I couldn't really figure out how to put one in either, so I just left it out. So it was probably the first time I ever did that, but it still bothers me to this day. I'm like, it kind of has a sin similar to this one where people get too close to the flame. But enough about me. So the sin is the easiest way to describe it is we built the houses, but we didn't move the graves, or we didn't move the bodies. It's something horrible that the humans in the world do that makes them almost deserve the horror that's coming their way. And the more I watch movies, I think that's the purpose of it. Is it puts us on unsafe ground as a viewer. If there is no sin, we're just watching kind of nihilism. We're just watching innocent people get slaughtered, and people can be innocent. But if there's a sin there, and we know in movie world they kind of deserve it, that makes everything even more tension filled, right? Because we know they kind of deserve it, and they may not live or not, and it might not even be that our heroes committed the sin.
Right. Humanity committed a sin.
Humanity. Yeah. So, Alien is a good example of that, or even Jaws, where it's, the man is somehow committing the sin, but innocent people are suffering for the sin that the man has committed.
Jason was
collateral damage.
Jason was created by bullying, and then thus he is punishing the children. It has nothing tangentially to do with him, like the people that actually did it to him, right?
Right.
Same with Freddy, right? Well, Freddy's actually connected with the children.
I think for practical purposes, like the more I think about Monster in the House movies, that works as an audience member, that works in our subconscious level.
Yeah.
We're like, we understand that there's collateral damage when people do evil in the world. And sometimes innocent people get swept up in that.
If we create toxic waste, you create toxic adventure, right?
Right.
Exactly.
It's our fault.
So anyway, that's the sin.
So what do you guys think, based on seeing this for one time, what the sin is of this movie? And then I'll tell you what Jordan says.
Jamie, you want to?
Yeah. So
okay.
why don't you? I don't have a great answer because so I'll let you start.
The themes, so that's the thing, is like seeing this movie once, and it was a week ago, so bear with me. I think this is where the movie is aiming to. That's where the heavy goal of this movie is theme. There's a lot of sins that I took from it, but mostly it was hubris and exploitation. Like man, it's so hard to pare down, but like the theme with Gordy and trying to exploit something strange and otherworldly to humans, such as a chimp, for your own gain financially in a sitcom, or trying to tame an unknown, almost like Lovecraftian monster, like Jean Jacket, we're calling her, right? That's what we call the monster. For your own gain. That's the sin that I picked up, and that was the parallel between two stories that I think a lot of people are confused about. What does the chimp have to do with? It seems to confuse a lot of people from what I gather. But that's what I walked away from my one viewing with, where it's about exploiting something we don't understand for financial gain. That's sin.
Woo! Right. Damn, you fucking nailed it, Bob.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
I was trying to put my finger on that on what it was trying to do, at the connective tissue, right, with all of these things. I knew they were all connected. I knew they were all about spectacle, but I couldn't put my finger on those words, that specific.
There's a line in the movie, right, where he says like you can make a deal with an animal.
Yeah, well, I got it.
But you can't control it. Or something
He says,
like that, right? I can't remember the line.
Here's what he says. He says, Jupe got caught up trying to tame a predator. You can't do that. You got to enter an agreement with one.
Okay, right. So that was the line. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I got 2 quotes from Jordan. The second one's on the nose, but I'll lead
Jamie,
in
was
with
that
the other
what
one.
you would say? Just real quick.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
that's what I'd say. I had 2 kind of things that I was trying to wrestle together.
Yes.
And so that was one, because that's where the Gordy thing kind of comes into play. I can't really, but here's the other one that I keep thinking, and this is why the sin is a little difficult as well for me. I think there's something like if we stare at something, we give it power. Don't stare at evil.
The eyes is a big thing in the movie. Yeah.
So don't look it in the face. There's something like ignoring it will take away its power or something. It doesn't totally work, but I was trying to wrestle that.
It's messy, yeah.
Jamie, that to me, and remember, I've only seen this once, but that to me is the significance of the shoe. That it doesn't, the why of the fact that the shoe is standing up like that doesn't matter. Why that happened doesn't matter. It's the fact that it actually I diverted Jupe's gaze, and that's why he survived. It was the bad miracle thing they talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter why that shoe was like that. It had nothing to do with the aliens or anything. It's just that was the thing that saved his life, and he perceived it as some sort of, I have a kinship with this chimp, and it's not. It's just the fact that you couldn't stare it directly in the eyes. You're mesmerized by a shoe. And you also had something that was diverting your gaze under the table. The chimp couldn't see his eyes through that tablecloth. You know? Yeah,
good point. Really good point. And yeah, that's definitely there. No, and I want to bring up the eyes thing when we round everything out in the end, and I kind of want to go through everything and then bring that back about the lesson. Okay. But so here I'll bring up 2 quotes from Jordan, and then the second one is directly on the nose, and it speaks to both of what you guys are just saying. So the first one, he says, it's about Hollywood, the quest for attention and the danger and violence that comes with that quest. It's about the industry and business of spectacle. There's a magic to it, and there's also something insidious about it. Our addiction to spectacle is harmful. Hence, Jamie, looking at something gives it power. Our addiction to spectacle is harmful. The duality of the magic and the insidiousness of spectacle is what the film is about. So that's one. The second, he actually said, which helped me out. I was like, oh, this is great. The theme is exploitation. Bob gets the gold star.
All right. Okay, I'll see everybody later. I'm out.
He's out. He says it's about acknowledging the erasure, hard word to say. It's about acknowledging the erasure of those who are exploited for the industry of spectacle and the violence that spectacle causes, and how we as an audience are complicit to that violence.
Yep.
Damn. I mean, that you can see that in everything. You just see that in everything when you hear it.
It's pretty blunt in the movie too. Like like the movie talks about how the first thing ever filmed was a black man on a horse that never got any credit, and the movie we're watching is a black man with a horse trying to get the ultimate credit. Yeah, which is taking a picture of an actual alien, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like the parallel there's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. So I couldn't put my finger on the exploitation thing that you pulled out of it your first watch. So that's awesome to hear that it came across for you right away.
You know what? The Gordy story, if it wasn't for the Gordy parallel thing, I don't think I would have pulled that away from just the main storyline. The Gordy stuff is what really just sunk it in for me, which I find interesting because I've read reviews where they're like, that's the useless part of the movie.
I know, that's the Jamie. Do you want to talk about that horror B story thing that you were mentioning?
That was kind of what I was trying to.
Yeah, I know you were.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
So the one thing I took away from this, because I was watching that whole storyline, that whole B story that opens the movie, and then comes back to play. It's something I've noticed recently. It's probably been in movies all along, and I just haven't been paying attention. But this, I almost want to give it like a title, like it's a trope or something, like the second horror story. Because like not Hereditary, but Midsommar.
Yeah.
Midsommar had that opening scene that's almost its own little horror movie. That kind of in some ways doesn't even fit with the rest of the movie in some ways, but also sets you up and makes you uneasy. And it's very memorable, and it kind of grabs you by the throat right away when you come into the movie. And this movie did that too. And I was kind of fascinated by this kind of thing. And then I thought back, I'm like, what other movies have done that? Like, we talk about the classic movies, like the Carpenter movies and, all the horror movies from when we were kids. And the one that popped into my head was a little bit Pet Sematary. Because they have, it's the sister, right? What's her name?
Mm-hmm. Zelda.
I don't know why I was trying to call her Esmeralda. I was like, that's not right.
It's somewhere in the ballpark.
Somewhere in the ballpark.
It's got an Elda in there.
I mean, Zelda is all about sometimes dead is better. Like Zelda would have been better off dead.
Yep. And
like the whole wrestling of the theme. Yeah.
And somehow it's giving this B, I'm going to call it like the horror B story, for lack of a better term, coming up with this really cool horror B story that directly expresses the theme of the horror movie in its own way. So it's this interesting thing I've seen in horror movies that this one just popped to me. I was like, oh, okay. It's this really cool. It's probably the thing I'm going to take away the most from this is this little weird, thing that some people probably would think it's pointless and should be edited out. Because there was an instinct of me when I was watching, this other thought ran through my head that I don't believe is true in this case. But reading new writer scripts, sometimes there's this weird instinct to put everything cool into your script. It's like they because maybe they're only going to write one script. So every cool idea they ever had, they put into one script. And maybe the sitcom story with the chimp doesn't make sense in their script. But I'm not saying that's true in this script. But there was a part of me that was reminded of that because I've seen this in amateur scripts where it doesn't work because it doesn't connect thematically. And this is the problem. The amateur scripts that I read or the newbie scripts I read, they don't do the connective work. It's the character doesn't reoccur later on or doesn't play a big part and have his own huge B story, with like an addiction to spectacle and misreading the signs and really being a half man to the story is what I think. I think he is kind of the half man.
Yeah.
So I think this one totally fits, but I also think this is a tool that I'm going to keep in mind for future horror scripts that maybe I've been, instinctively stumbled upon once or twice. But I think it's a kind of cool tool that gives you like another vehicle for your horror.
Can I also add to like with the Gordy thing? I think Jordan Peele is like kind of a genius in a lot of ways. Like, and I think his comedy background plays into this, but in a lesser script, an amateur script, like Jamie was saying, Gordy would also be connected to the aliens in some way. In fact, I think Jordan Peele knows that people are looking for a way that Gordy and the alien have some sort of story connection, as in like, that's why he made him a space chimp.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
He wants people to be like, okay, so the monsters have some sort of psychic connection to the chimp that made him go crazy. He's like, no, that has nothing. He puts that there to fool you, to think that there is going to be some story connection between the two, when actually it's only thematic connection.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lesser movie would be like, oh my God, the chimp was being controlled 30 years ago by the jean jacket or something. You know what I mean? Because he met it in space when he was in space or something weird like that. And he puts it in the script like that. Why else make the opening of the sitcom have a space shuttle and stuff?
Right. There's
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah. There's this whole. I was curious, and I didn't learn if there was anything more that got cut with, because on like Gordy's T-shirt, the Challenger is on there, and that's a spectacle. It says like he was a part. Like I'm like, how was Gordy a part of the Challenger mission? I don't know. Maybe that's just like an Easter egg, or maybe there was more that they cut that he was somehow involved in the Challenger.
It's a subconscious connection to
yeah,
space.
exactly. Yeah.
And then we're dealing with an alien.
Yeah.
It feels like the end reveal is going to be like the twist.
Yeah.
The chimp is like, connected to Jean Jacket. But it's not. It's not.
And that's okay.
It's okay. It's great.
The theme is all that matters with Gordy.
Right.
But Jamie, could you, because I don't think we set up what a half man is, as you've been talking about a half man. And if there's anyone who's listening and hasn't heard our past Monster in the House episodes,
right.
set up what the half man is.
Yeah, and half man is part of that whole Monster in the House thing. So Monster in the House is much like Sins. They often have, sometimes they don't, but they often have this character called a half man. And a half man is some person that has some kind of knowledge or experience. Sometimes they've even encountered the evil in the monster of some sort. And the reason it's called a half man is sometimes they're damaged, they're scarred, they have missing limbs, they have something like that.
Or they become a half man during the course of the story.
Or the story,
Exactly.
In this case.
So in this case, and they usually give some kind of speech about what to do. Like Quint is the one that we talk about a lot. And also to an extent, Donald Pleasance, maybe, even though he didn't really experience it, but he has the knowledge.
Ash in Alien.
Ash and Aliens. Sometimes they haven't actually met like the actual monster they're fighting, but they have some awareness of that. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so we have this character. What's his name? Jupe. And he is kind of the one that's experienced this kind of I'll call it evil or horror or whatever you want.
And now he didn't learn the lesson. He's become an exploiter himself.
He wouldn't have a shrine to it if he did learn the lesson. You know what I mean? Like he has a shrine to Gordy, basically. Which
sometimes, you find that is true in a lot of half men, is sometimes they kind of have an obsession of sorts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's to kill the beast. Sometimes
it's a Moby Dick type thing, right?
Yeah, it's a Moby Dick type thing. Yeah, it's like they survived it and now they're hunting it. You see that a lot in the half men stories.
So, but it's there to, that's what Quint is. But it's often there to be some expression of the theme, whether it's a character who hasn't learned the lesson, they're still leaning toward the wrong way. They're still committing the quote unquote sins that bring about the monster. And sometimes it's the opposite. They're trying to get everyone not to commit the sins. This is what's going to happen if you keep committing the sins. And there's also, I feel like Antlers Holst, the cameraman, is also a half man, but the movie doesn't really give us much insight into like what his past experience with is.
He feels very Quint in the end. It feels like they bring in Quint.
I think that was it's supposed to be like, because Michael Wincott he could be Clint in a remake of Jaws, right? Like, like he'd be a perfect Clint now. But I don't consider him a half man in this movie. But I
mean, like this line that this dream you're chasing where you end up at the top of the mountain, it's the dream you never wake up from. I mean, that's totally speaking to fame and the consequences for seeking fame and
you're saying he's the half man of fame itself, not the monster or the exploitation,
which is just like a part of spectacle, being a piece in that spectacle puzzle. Yeah. I don't know. I thought he was
to die to get the perfect shot.
Yeah, he's got to get the perfect shot. Yeah, I think he's definitely a half man. Like he fits the mold. We just didn't.
He feels like one. Let's say that.
Yeah. I mean, they have that dinner that's like the "Show Me the Way to Go Home with a UFO Skin," where instead of singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home," he says "The Purple People Eater."
Right.
Poem, and that's what Quint did, and.
He gives a very half man kind of line when he says like that dream you're looking for, It's a very, very half man sort of line.
It does feel like the half man split between the two though, right?
Yeah, but between the two, they both like show you like the whole broad spectrum of the monster and the sin, and the theme.
The reason I wouldn't give Antlers the full-fledged half man hat or trophy award is He really feels like he's pulled into the movie very late in the game. Like he's a third act kind of
I
maneuver.
agree.
Yeah, as opposed to a real.
And Jupe dies early, so it's like weird and it's unconventional in both way. In that way,
Though I would say often half men do die early, or usually by all is lost. It often happens. A lot of times the half men will die then. Not always, but often it kind of happens.
Gotcha. Jamie, I feel like we can skip past the three types of horror discussion.
Yeah, I was going to say I feel like we almost covered that, didn't we?
Yeah. And we can, I wanted to talk about horror villain construction because I think where this excels is that like, of all the horror techniques that this movie uses, I think this is where it stands out the most. So in the past, if you want to look back at other episodes, we did this in the Candyman episode, we did this in the Alien episode, we did this in the Scream episode about Ghostface. So I have a few questions that in the past I've worked with so many new screenwriters, as Jamie was just talking about before, who write a horror script and they have a monster that's very generic because they haven't taken the time to really hash out what makes their monster unique and how it relates to thematically and things like that. And these questions, time and time again, we've broken down horror movies and shown how the writers did do that work. So I kind of wanted to go down the list. So the idea here with these questions is to find what's specific and unique about your movie to answer these questions. So first off is, what does it look like? Well, I mean,
so I got something to say about this.
Yeah, let's go.
What I love is that he's trying to make an alien that covers all the known things that we know about, like sightings. It looks like a saucer sometimes. It's almost Lovecraftian in the way that it lives in the clouds. Which is actually like, there's a name, I forget the name, but there's a beast that lives in the clouds and does almost nigh the same thing that Jean Jacket does in this movie. Like it literally, I should have looked up what the name is, but I remember it exists. And also it looks like a weather balloon.
Yeah, it does.
So that's
awesome.
It looks like the things that you normally hear or that the government normally says what something is or not. It looks like a saucer. It looks like a weather balloon, and it's pulling from actual Lovecraft stories,
and pulling from the zeitgeist of what
of what actual people have said they've seen in the sky. Right? Yeah.
So that's an appearance that like we could only see in this movie, right? So that's what makes it stand out. That's why you remember it. I love that like the script OJ actually says sort of the brainstorming that like probably sparked everything. We've talked about the importance of like finding a core what if question and making all of your ideas sort of an extension and exploration of that what if. And OJ says, what if it's not a ship? And that's like the whole movie is, what if the alien UFO is not a ship, but it's the alien itself? I mean, I think there's probably people in the audience that would argue like it might not even be alien, like it could be of this earth. It's something to think about. But the second question I try to ask is, what is your monster's modus operandi? Like something that is so specific to them. Like, how do they kill? And this one, like, again, Bob, like what you talked about before.
So, yeah, I actually looked it up while because I feel bad. The flying polyp from Lovecraft is the name of the thing. And it is a creature that arrived on Earth millions of years ago. And the one thing is that it hates being perceived. There you go.
There you go.
Like that,
there you go. I love it.
Yeah. So like we're talking about modus operandi, like as far as it doesn't like being looked at. And if you look at it, that's when it attacks, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's pulling from that too, right?
That's perfect. What I was going to mention was what does an abduction look like?
Oh yeah.
With this monster, it's the vortex into its mouth.
Right.
I mean, that's how does a monster that looks like a UFO kill? he came up with like, you know, some logic, right? It just sucks its prey up into its mouth. When we think of UFOs, we think of people being abducted, and we have that sort of zeitgeist tractor beam, and he found a way to make that like more like gritty and
since
like
since it's not a ship, it's a thing.
Since it's a thing. Well, what does that look like? It's a wind vortex, like a little tornado into its mouth. So that is a modus operandi that is so specific to the monster in this movie.
It also gives off electromagnetic pulses, which also
that's
another why we never have these
on footage.
On footage, right? Like it's part of its like
it's
biology.
Tactic. It's tactic.
Self-defense mechanism.
And this is my favorite thing that he did in the horror villain construction. So, what is your monster's personality or voice? And if they don't have a voice, or if they do have a voice, what informs it? I mean, the screams of its dying victims. That is an amazing premise-specific voice for the monster. So that was, you know, he took the time to be like, okay, well, what does it sound like? You know, how can I make it unique and memorable and surprising? I remember thinking in the theater as we were hearing the horse scream before we ever heard people, and OJ saying like, the horse made a sound I've never heard before, because that's literally the sound of a horse being ripped to shreds. Oh my God.
It's like the cow in Jurassic Park almost, right?
Yes.
With the raptors.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going to bring up some Jurassic Park stuff later, because I think it does well, speaking of Jurassic Park, let's talk about the next thing on the horror villain construction, which is the warning signs of the monster's appearance. These can be, I call these shark fins, because obviously Jaws, you see this fin, we know the monster is near. But when you're brainstorming your monster, like often I'll read a script where there's no shark fins whatsoever, and there you can brainstorm a variety of ways to give the audience dread that your monster is near, even when you don't see the monster. So there's these little techniques that you can just drop in these things, like in Scream, for instance, when they find out that you could buy the mask at any Halloween store in town, that mask is popping up all over the place in the scenes, even when it's not even a horror scene. So you kind of feel like the monster's there, even when we're not in a scene that's going to be a slasher kill. So, you know, the shark fins in Jaws, the predator rattle, the puddles in Jurassic Park. I mean, every time we see a puddle ripple, or even if we just see a puddle, we're worried about the dinosaur being near. So this one has so many. Can you guys think of any before I just say them all?
Well, I mean, seeing it in the clouds.
The cloud.
When it's passing cloud to cloud, obviously.
Yeah. And they do a very Joel's rippy offy thing with the wavy dancing men.
The wavy dancing man. Yeah.
Arm flailing tube men. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The tube men go down. It's pretty much that power goes dead. They did a whole whiteboard with the power going dead.
Mm-hmm.
The wacky wavers. The lights go down, the cameras go down, the car and house stereo goes up and down and changes speed and tempo as it's getting close and far. The horses are scared. Every time we hear the horses are scared, we go, oh shit. Like you said, Bob, the dark shadows in the sky. It rains debris and blood from its victims. So we see all the debris raining down from the last people it just sucked up and killed. The vortex of sand. When you see a sand cloud in the middle of the desert, you know it's near, even though you don't see it. So these are just ways that the static cloud and not moving, and we know it's right there. Yeah. So, you know, Jordan Peele took the time. He did a brainstorming session. We call it on the podcast the whiteboarding, but this could be on a pad of paper. It could be on an app on your phone. It doesn't need to be on a whiteboard. You said whiteboard. What if I don't have a whiteboard?
You could do it on chalk on your driveway if you want.
Whatever you want. Yeah. You can write it on a napkin at the bar. You can do it on your arm, whatever. The point is, you take the time to make a list of these warning signs of these shark fins, it's going to give you like ample ways to create dread and tension throughout your horror story when the monster's not even there. So it feels that the result is you kind of feel like you don't go more than like 2 minutes without seeing the monster, even though in reality you probably go like 40 minutes without actually seeing the ship from time to time in this movie. So that was the warning signs. Jamie, you wanted to talk about the backstory and the lack thereof.
Yeah, because honestly, if I was one of my pet peeves, a little bit with Get Out and a little bit with Us, is I thought Jordan Peele went too far to explain it all. I remember I really liked Us, but then the parts of me kind of, once he said there was this whole group of people living underground, mirroring our lives, me picturing like, how would they get to California to New York? And, things like that.
If I remember that episode, we were like, the double mumbo jumbo of that does not make any sense, and we just had to let it go.
Right.
Like the actual like execution of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. And Get Out has a little bit of that too, because once I realized what their motives are, I'm like, there's probably an easier way to go about getting him and stuff like that. But anyway, so these are kind of like after the movie trying to fit the backstory to the thing. And one thing in horror that you don't really have to do, sometimes you're better off not explaining the backstory of the beast. Like if somebody came there, like let's say Antlers knew all about the UFO and like, I know what it is. It's the thing that took the Roanoke colony and this and that, blah, 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 and this and that. You might find yourself in some weird logical holes with it. If it was a UFO, if it wasn't, all these things you're saying, like you said, it could be a creature from this earth, or it could be a UFO, or it could be from another dimension. Who knows what it is?
Yeah, it really doesn't say
it
it's
doesn't
from
matter.
space. Like we don't actually know it's from space.
I kind of like the unifying theory aspect that whatever this thing is, it explains UFO photos or something.
Right. Yeah, totally.
But it doesn't explain what they are necessarily. Now we've captured that there is a thing and it's a living thing, whether it's from outer space or from here, So anyway, it's a technique that he has not used in previous movies that I actually think works great in horror movies, where a lot of movies it doesn't work with. Now, as a screenwriter who has worked with a lot of producers and studios, I will say that they constantly try to get you to explain these things.
Right.
There's always somebody, even if 4 of the 5 studio reps think it's fine, there's always one person that's like, but really, I don't understand. Is it from this earth? Is it not? We really need to know that. The audience will want to know. And you spend a lot of time as a screenwriter. If you don't put that stuff in, you do spend a lot of time like,
or they want you to make like the Prometheus of Nope, like where did this all come from?
I think there's a certain aspect of and honestly, some studio people are great and some are great, but they have bad days or the misreads. But sometimes their job is to give notes, and this is an obvious note. Like if you don't explain the monster, sometimes it's obvious. Like, I really want to know more about our UFO friend, or something. Yeah. It's just like a low-hanging fruit thing that they're saying that you have to deal with. But I actually think most horror movies are better in this direction than explaining too much.
Yeah.
I think Things in the Shadows is better than explaining it all, which he kind of did in his last 2 movies. And they were different movies, but still, I like this approach.
Like they didn't take the time to like explain why the shark in Jaws is so big, or how it got so big, or why it's so, extraordinary. And you don't care, right? It's just a big shark that's going to kill them. And same with the alien. We get a little bit of, we get a little bit of tease that, it impregnated a previous species. But we don't really get any explanation of it beyond that, and it works.
And it also doesn't matter because our main characters are trying to capture a picture of a thing that has never been captured. What that thing is kind of doesn't matter. It just matters that you have a photo of it, right? Like
all that they need to figure out is
the first step to
how to do this, right? How to do this and survive, which they do, right? Like don't look at it. So I kind of want to skip past the pillar beats because I was thinking it was a a very unconventional structure, and you guys both feeling like the lock-in was we got to capture the Oprah shot. That turns the whole discussion for me.
Okay.
That eliminates the whole discussion, because I was thinking the lock-in. I'll just bring this part up.
Okay.
Say what you felt. And
so the OJ shot, the Oprah shot decision comes at 30 minutes. So that's a pretty standard, that's pretty traditional space in the story. Like, you see all the books, we've talked about this many times, you see all the books try to encourage, a 25% act one, but we've given so many examples of great movies that just throw that out the window, and we're, and
especially in the horror space.
Especially in the horror space. And Jamie, I was going off of the Jurassic Park example that you just mentioned a couple episodes ago, where you said, and Bob and I both ended up agreeing with you, that the end of Act One isn't until the T-Rex paddock sequence, which is like in 65 minutes into Jurassic Park.
Right,
so you have a 65-minute setup, and it works. It's awesome, right? Here, I was gonna say that you guys saying that we got to get the Oprah shot, that tracks as a lock-in, because we get these fun and games right after that of them setting up the cameras and all the fun and games with trying to bait it and all that. And I was feeling like that fun and games came a little early, and I kind of liked it for that. Like, oh, we're getting fun and games before we get into the lock-in of the overall story problem. But I was kind of thinking the first time they actually confirm that it's a UFO, because he sees something in the sky, but that's it. When they make the Oprah decision, he still doesn't know for sure. The actual moment where they know it's a UFO is when the UFO takes the horse bait, just like the T-Rex takes the goat bait, and the horse disappears with the little flag on it, and then they have that scary sequence with the UFO actually being a threat that they need to hide from and figure out how to survive. Yep. And that's 45 minutes into the movie.
I would probably put the break into 2 at that too. Like, the idea to get the Oprah shot is still up for debate until that moment. And then then the fun and games becomes when they go to the electronics store and they start putting up the surveillance equipment and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, that happens before they bait it.
Isn't there, and I'm sorry, seeing it once, isn't there a scene before where there's some fluctuating electricity in the house and the horses vanish or something like that?
That all happens after they set up the equipment.
Oh, really? For some reason, I thought there was one beat before they went and got the equipment.
it's he sees something. The ghost is in the arena at 26 minutes. This is where I track the debate section in the Save the Cat structure.
Right.
Ghost is in the arena, and she's like, why is Ghost in the arena? And he goes out there, and Ghost like runs away, and he sees something in the sky, and there's the power goes out while she's dancing. Yeah, but that's it. There's no threat. There's zero sign of threat.
Yeah, to me though, that's the break into 2, because that's the one I was thinking.
So the Oprah conversation happens literally right after that. So that's 30 minutes.
Yeah, doesn't he hear like some horrible scream? I've never heard a horse scream like that in my life.
That's where the conversation, that's where the line, she says, what do you see?
Okay.
He said, what's a bad miracle? That's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's where he debates, like, they said Pa got killed by a plane, something falling from a plane. I never bought that. And they debate what the hell is going on. That's why I was like, oh, this is kind of feels like a debate section.
Yeah.
But so if you're calling that 30 minutes into the movie, the lock-in, that's fine. I'm not going to argue that. To me, it felt like they didn't have proof. They didn't see it for themselves and feel like it was a threat they need to fear until just like T-Rex. When the T-Rex is out of the cage, that's 65. Yeah. Anyway.
And my take on it is they make a decision to take action. So they go out and they set up their trap, right?
You're right.
And again,
it feels right to me.
I think you guys are right.
Yeah. If I'm pitching this movie logline wise, it's probably after a series of mysterious incidents, a brother and sister decide to trap a UFO on camera for. And that's what happens.
And that's the Oprah shot. That's the Oprah shot discussion. And that is 30 minutes. So that's a really traditional structure. So that sort of takes everything I was going to talk about beyond this off the table. Because if I was doing it when I was tracking it at 45 minutes, I was like, then the second act is shorter than the first act. And the third act is even shorter. It was like long first act, short second act, shorter third act. It was like a really weird structure, but that goes out the window now.
Weird question that maybe only Jimmy can answer, or just from memory, but does any of the structure fit in? Because I'm wrestling with why he did this, but does any of that structure fit into the breaks where he puts the horses' names on screen?
Right.
Does that have any? I can't remember.
The title cards of the horses is really weird in its placement. I didn't notice anything like sort of why I didn't connect with why even on the second time. So I was able to. I sat in the back of the theater and I tracked minute per minute what happened. There was actually like 10 people in the theater given that this has been out for over a month during a pandemic. I was really surprised by that. So that was cool.
You know, the other weird thing about that is there's just doesn't feel like there's as many movies coming out anymore. So it feels like if you want to go out for Nope, it's still one of the more recent movies to go check out in the theater.
Yeah.
But
by the way, one thing with those cards, there's also back to the theme discussion way in the beginning.
The exploitation, they're what's being exploited, I guess.
Isn't there a biblical quote at the very beginning of this too, that I meant to look up?
I didn't write it down.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. And I think it has to do with like spectacle, and it's I can't remember what it was, but you reminded me of it when you said the cards. I was like, I wanted to look that up for a theme discussion. I never did. And then when you just talked about the cards, I was like,
I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, make you a spectacle.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah.
That is what it is.
Very evocative.
From the Old Testament.
Yes.
So that was where I wanted to bring in was the late lock-in, but you guys have convinced me that I was wrong, because you're right. That's where they lock into the goal, which is to capture the shot. The goal, that's their filmable goal, and that they decide to do that. They set out for that golden fleece, Jamie, at 30 minutes. So that's a really traditional structure. So everything I was going to discuss after that goes out the window. So
it's interesting too, because so there are movies like Jurassic Park, let's say, that then at the midpoint, suddenly they're trapped. And now they are trapped, you know, or whatever it is. Now they can't get out. Now they're trapped in the spaceship or in the monster's belly or something. Or
on an island.
On an island. It destroys their cars and they can't get out because it's hunting them. And some of those movies, it becomes very debatable what the lock-in is. Is it when they went searching for them, or was it when it trapped them? And then you kind of get into is this a monster in the house? Is it a golden fleece with a stake razor? And then you kind of have a debate. But this one, they pretty much stay true to we're trying to get this thing on camera almost entirely to the end.
They're running into the battle the whole time. Like,
they leave. They leave during
they could abandon any time.
They do leave. They leave at the all is lost, and they go get fast food, and they debate whether they're going to ever go back. And OJ doubles down on the goal, and that's why I want to talk about in a minute the theme.
Fact they can just go eat, and the thing isn't like
exactly
trying to attack them. It means that they could just leave.
They go back by their own choice, which
it supports your argument, Jamie, that this is not a trap. That this is it's unconventional in that way for sure.
Yep, they're going back for the trophy essentially.
Things
got really hard. People died, but they're still going to go back and try to win that trophy. You know.
I mean, the trap, like I said, the trap for me felt like they've got, at least OJ doesn't have much left in life. I know that's not a house. I'm not saying that is, but that's the
figurative. Figurative trap. Yeah.
That's why it works for me, at least.
Gotcha.
Because I'm with him. And I want him to, I know, his life has pretty much been destroyed, right? Like everything he loved in this world is like kind of dead.
So one structured thing, you want to talk about the 5-point finale?
Yeah.
Let's talk. Yeah, we can talk about that. I tracked it. Yeah.
Yeah, this one has a good one. So in the third Save the Cat book, Blake Snyder introduces the 5-point finale, or you could just buy my book, Save the Cat Writes for TV, and read about the 5-point finale, because I have all those things in my book. You just have to buy one book. But anyway, the 5-point finale is, so the Save the Cat beat sheet has all these beats, and there are a couple beats, fun and games, bad guys close in the finale, that it's kind of like, here's what the beat does. It's 30 pages. Good luck. Right. And he's like, I still think fun and games and bad guys close in could use a 5-point fun and games or 5-point, but Blake Snyder did do one for the finale. And these are extra sub beats that help you brainstorm a full finale. And this is another thing where I think Jimmy and I both have experienced. Many writers get to the finale and they wrap it up really quick or something.
It's like a 10-page act 3.
Everything goes right usually. It's just like they do a plan, they win, the end, we're out of here. Yeah, we're in a
here's what it is. There's gathering the team and storming the castle. That's it. There's nothing else.
Yes. So Jimmy just teased the first 2 beats of the 5-point finale, gathering the team and storming the castle. So gathering the team is making a plan. It's suiting up. It's the whole 18 montage. Remember,
can't help but think of Princess Bride.
I mean, endless movies. Yeah. Cheeseburgers.
Exactly. When it's, if there's any kind of welding going on, it's usually in the gathering the team or something. They're building a thing. So the gathering the team, they prep whatever the plan is. They get ready. Storming the castle is the second beat. That's the actual plan in action. So the heroes, they come up with a plan. They storm the castle. The plan in action. There's a high tower surprise, which is a twist. The plan does not go as expected. Something bad happens. The monster's ready for them. Something unexpected occurs. There's a power failure. Something happens. High tower surprise. Then the heroes have to dig down deep. They have to overcome this new surprise, dig down deep, and kind of show that they're a little. Usually, this is where a character shows that they're different than they were in the beginning of the movie. The Act 3 hero is different than the Act 1 hero.
They show growth.
Yeah, they show some growth, and they execute a new plan in the best movies that they wouldn't have executed in the very beginning of the movie. They've learned something new along the way. There's something that occurs to them. They're somehow smarter or more pure or something, or sacrificial, and they win the day. So here are 5 beats: gather the team, storm the castle, high tower surprise, dig down deep, execute the new plan. And Jimmy, how did those track in this movie?
I tracked them, and I'll do my best Micro Machines voice.
I feel like a lot. I mean, dude, I'm not trying to
Bob, if you wanted.
But I feel like they're pretty blunt, aren't they?
It's pretty blunt, and also I think when I go through it, you guys will agree with me. I think it has 2 high tower surprises. Which and this is a note to anyone listening, if you're unfamiliar with the 5-point finale and you've never used it. We've broken down many great movies that divert from this, and it works great. Sometimes they have 2 high tower surprises. Sometimes they have multiple dig down deep. Sometimes they do 2 execution of 2 plans, right? They execute a plan. It doesn't work. There's a high tower surprise. And then they execute another plan and it works finally, right? So this is just, it's a brainstorming technique to make your third act interesting. So it's not.
Yeah, especially in the new Marvel movies. One of my pet peeves with it is they tend to do too many.
Yeah,
of these.
The Marvels have.
I start getting bored. It's
10-point finales.
Yeah, they're like
10-point finales.
Yeah, 5-point times 3.
So they just keep going. So here we go. This is at 90 to 95 minutes. They make the plan, right? The OJ says that line about Juke got caught up trying to tame a predator. You can't do that. And he's like, here's what we're going to do. And we can't look it in the eyes. They make a really loose plan. And I feel like there's more to it that got cut, because they have this map and they have the map and they use Monopoly pieces. So they make it visual, and they all have like really plotted out things on the map, but we don't get to hear the specifics of those. The plan is really loose. We really don't get to hear much of it, which is unconventional because it's the opposite of the Death Star trench, which is we get to see exactly what the plan is to blow up the Death Star. Then we have the Purple People eat her dinner in the Gathering the Team section. Then we go to storming the castle. Emerald drops the needle on the record. Everyone's at their stations. Everyone's ready to do what they're supposed to do. You know, Antlers is filming. Angel is backing him up and assisting him with a digital camera and ready to change the film for him. Everybody's in their stations. And then there's a Hightower surprise, which is the TMZ reporter shows up. And he knows all about what's going on. He's caught wind of the missing people at Juniper's Claim, and he wants to film this thing for himself. And he wants to talk to them now that he realizes they know all about this too. And
a movie about exploitation, of course, TMZ had to show up at the last minute and ruin everything. It's so good.
I've seen a lot of people complain, not a lot of people, but I've seen some complaints about this being like a payoff in the setup, but no, that's bullshit. They did set up that like people are going to learn about this. We got to hurry and get this before, you know, we got to own the moment, quote unquote.
I think this is one of those bad luck coincidences that you get away with. You
coincidences that get you into trouble or work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, the TMZ reporter OJ tries to save him. He hits the anti-electrical field. OJ tries to save him, but he can't because the guy is like refusing OJ's help. And then the guy gets killed. And then we have another Hightower surprise because the good news is Antler filmed that UFO. Antlers filmed that UFO in close proximity. He got it all. But the bad news is it's magic hour and Antlers sees his opportunity to get his perfect shot that he's claiming he's been hunting forever. And he takes the camera with him with the footage that they've been trying to get. And he goes to the top of the mountain, you know, literally, you know, bringing to life that line he warned them about. He goes to the top of the mountain. He gets the perfect shot, but he gets eaten in the process. And so then we have the dig down deep, which is it's just OJ and Emerald. And OJ digs down deep and he looks the monster in the eye. So he shows growth and change. And or maybe he doesn't. I want to discuss that in a minute. But OJ does something different than he did before. This is OJ's version of using the Force. He looks the monster in the eye and distracts the monster away from Emerald so Emerald can escape. And then we have the execution of the new plan. Emerald motorbikes to Juniper's claim or Jupe's claim. She leads the UFO to the well camera and unleashes the inflatable Jupe into the air to bait the UFO. She says, "Let's go to Oprah." And UFO eats the giant inflatable Jupe balloon. Emerald snaps the photo and then the UFO explodes. So we have they definitely used the 5-point finale. And I think they added an extra Hightower surprise in there. So, I mean, you see the pros do this too. This is definitely something that the pros use.
As far as OJ's growth, I think it's a little hazy. But if I had to say what I walked away with was he at the beginning of the movie, he was still in his mind the future of the company, the future of the family, and it was still all on him. And in that moment, he decided that it was all up to his sister.
Interesting. He's putting his trust in there.
Yeah, he's like, she's got this. I'm no longer the one that has this on my shoulders. It's her.
So that's what I wanted to ask you guys. We might as well get into it. Do you guys think, based on what we know about the sin and what we know about the theme, in the end, do you guys think that the movie proves they learned the lesson, or do you think the movie is saying they didn't learn the lesson?
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one, and because in some ways if let's say spectacle is the great sin that we're talking, like this whole spectacle idea, exploiting things, taking pictures of it, whatever the thing is, killing it. But even though it's killing them, they certainly don't learn that lesson. It's not like they that would require a beat where they give up on the lesson for people or something. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about it, Emerald. We don't need the picture. Just let it go. You know, when it's the Indiana Jones, let the Grail go.
Let it go. Let it
moment.
go. Yeah.
That lesson doesn't seem to be learned by them at all. In fact, we celebrate kind of that she gets the picture from the well.
Oh, well, I was trying to say at the beginning of the episode, like, I feel like that's a little bit thematic with the whole first thing ever filmed was a black man on a horse who had no credit, who was lost to history.
So they're not going to be erased at their discovery.
Right. Well, she actually filmed the most incredible thing in history, and she will be remembered.
Yeah, but the fame monster is gonna get her, dude.
I know that. I'm trying to work it out here. Like, I'm not saying.
Yeah. So you know, a lot of times when we've gone through I didn't mean to cut you off, Bob.
No, you're good.
So I kind of here's where we'll dig in, and I know we got like 6 minutes, but
yeah, you got time.
Jamie, you got a little time still, Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you know, a lot of times what we do is we look at the wrong way that the character was doing their stasis equals death when we meet them, and do they make a choice in the end that's different than they wouldn't have made when we meet them, right? So I want to look out. I got two. Let's talk about OJ real quick, and then let's talk about Emerald. So Emerald's very interesting because, and I think this makes it more confusing.
Because she wants the Oprah shot.
So
and she gets the Oprah shot.
Right. So when we meet her, but it's weird. So it's weird how it's handled. When we meet her, she's self-promoting to a fault. She's seeking money and fame, you know, and she's fully embracing what Haywood Hollywood, you know, horses is, which is basically a company that exploits animals for profit and spectacle, right? Which is the sin. Like her family ranch is a representation of the sin of the movie. For sure. They're complicit in it. They're actively doing it.
Yeah.
There's a choice she makes during the climax that is the opposite of that, which is when the TMZ reporter shows up, he asks her who she is, and she says, "I'm nobody." And then she actually tells him, "You don't want to go that way." She tries to get him to avoid the spectacle. She literally is like, "Don't go that way, man. You don't want to go that way." So in that moment, she makes a choice that kind of shows the arc, which is she's maintaining her anonymity in the face of a TMZ camera, and she's telling this person to avoid spectacle to save their life, which is like basically what the whole theme is saying, right? I think the theme is saying, you know, the monster is the loss of that anonymity.
But don't you find it a little? I'm not disagreeing. But don't you find it odd that after that she's still trying to get the picture?
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Right?
So what I'm saying is, then a couple minutes later, she goes back to the old way. She goes back to
right
the Emerald from the beginning. So I think it's really confusing, and it sort of drops the ball thematically in the end. And I'm sure if Jordan Peele was here, he could tell me exactly what I'm missing. But
I don't know if Emerald has the arc in the movie. I don't know if she's supposed to either.
Well, is there a part of it that she learns the lesson but then gets lucky and gets a reward in the end?
Anyway,
that's kind of another way to look at it. It's not quite as, you know, clean as some of the ways, but you see that sometimes in movies. Like they do the right thing and then they still get to keep grandma's farm because of a technicality or something like that. You know, is that what this is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did she sacrifice herself to save a life and then luck out to get the victory in the end?
Yeah, I don't know. And then OJ. So let's talk about like before World OJ and Act 3 OJ. So like when we meet him in the face of the quote unquote Hollywood monsters, he's looking down. He has imposter syndrome. I think what I basically gather from 2 watches is OJ has imposter syndrome, and which I don't think fits the theme at all. And it's kind of, that's why I'm like, what? That's why I want to hear what you guys have to think, and maybe I missed something. So in the face of those Hollywood monsters, OJ is looking down. He's definitely cowering to them, right? And he's doing exactly what he does in the face of the UFO, which is throughout the movie, he's like, don't look at it, and it won't hurt you. And then his new way, his meaningful choice that's supposed to show growth and change, his dig down deep is he looks at it. Fearless, right? So what does that say? Like, what is that? I don't know. And I guess I would say, I think I think OJ leaves this movie and he runs the Haywood's Hollywood Horses again. So to me, I don't think he's going to go. I think now he's going to feel like Keith David. He's going to be like, I finally can live up to my father's legacy and continue my father's legacy as a Hollywood horse trainer, right? But that's the wrong way. So it's weird. That's why I feel like the ending sort of like contradicts the rest of the movie a little bit.
It might be that the movie's more concerned with its themes than with the character arcs, I think. Because it's almost like the system itself, this Hollywood system that sucks you up, and chews you up and then spits you out, but never lets you escape. You can't escape it. OJ's never gonna escape his family's legacy or this industry, and that's just the sad truth of it.
Damn,
and his sister's never gonna escape her want of fame and fortune, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of her last lines is "Let's go, Oprah. Let's go to Oprah." Like she's definitely trying to take that picture so she can get famous. So I'm a little confused in the end.
Once you taste fame, that's it. You're like a shark or a bear that's tasted a human flesh.
So
once you taste it, it's it. The rest of your life.
So I mean, I don't know. Am I wrong then? They're kind of like Jupe. In the end,
a little bit, yeah.
There's another part of me that wonders because I do think it's messy, and I don't have an answer, but it's kind of like my favorite movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark. When you get in debates of like what the theme is to that, people are like, oh, it's obviously about don't look at it, right? The monster.
Yeah.
Right.
But what the heart of it to me always is more him and Marion. What does it mean between him and Marion?
Yeah.
And maybe that's where we're missing a little.
Yeah, the brother and sister unit are healed.
Maybe if we threw away the spectacle part and looked at their union, we'd be able to arrive at how they changed, because they're definitely different than they were in the beginning.
Yes.
And maybe it has nothing to do with spectacle.
Yeah, maybe I'm steering the conversation in the wrong direction.
I don't think it's you. I think Jordan Peele has steered us in that direction by his quotes that you read.
So OJ basically semi-sacrificing himself for his sister.
He does. Yes.
Is kind of the arc itself. It's their relationship had an arc.
That's definitely there.
Two of them
tracks, man.
They're somewhat the same people, but what changed was how they view each other and how they feel about each other.
I heard them say, and I loved this. They said it together in that same interview where I got some of these quotes. Kiki Palmer and I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. They said that she inherited her father's charm and personality, and he inherited his father's skill with horses, and together they make like a perfect unit. And so, yeah.
So in the end, they learned to be a perfect unit.
Yeah, they learned to work together, which is Jamie. That's one of your main three arcs. Learns to work as a team.
I'm willing to accept that. As the arc.
Okay. So, so there's only one thing I wanted to talk about, if you guys are cool with it, which is right before we started recording, I read an article from Slash Film that was an interview with the editor who went through the editing process, and I got his name. I don't want to miss his name. And his name is Daniel. I can't pronounce it. What an asshole.
On IMDb, it says Nicholas Monsauer.
Nicholas Monsauer. Yeah, that's it.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah. So here we go. I'm going to go down the list. It reminds me of when we talked about the Gremlins and how different that movie would have been from its original form that they were planning, because it's pretty big shit. So in the script, Gordy's home it didn't open with the Gordy's home flashback. It opened on the ranch. They didn't decide to put that on the front end until they edited the movie. And I mean, imagine it, that's
totally
our thematic hook, right? Like,
right,
and that's our cold open. If it opened on the ranch, there's like 5 minutes of them just like feeding horses before Keith David gets killed. So
now there is a little bit of a weird double dip with that. They both feel like teaser scenes. It feels like a double teaser, so I can kind of see how that is a post edit, but it worked great.
It worked great. So that's we've talked about, sometimes we're doing this podcast, we're treating the script as the final, we're treating the final edit as the script. And sometimes there were problems that they fixed during shooting, and sometimes there were things that were fixed during the writing, that's
the reason I say that at the beginning. So we're admitting that there could have been a million things that led to this edit.
Right. And there might have been solutions to some of these concerns or problems we're mentioning throughout the way that were in the script, and then they filmed it and it didn't work.
Yeah, because I could see myself, like, if I was writing this script, like if I had put that teaser in the beginning and then I start out with that teaser scene where the father dies and there's a weird space thing in the nickel and all that, I'd be like, yeah, I'm doing too much. I'll just keep one. Or, I could see I could see me doing the reverse.
Right.
And that probably would be wrong, based on what we've seen. It would have been
yeah, exactly. So this is the big one for me. This is pretty informative. So in the test cut that they had with audiences, the Gordy's home subplot was much longer. And first of all, I didn't say the original cut of this movie, the first cut was 4 hours.
Oh,
4 hours, which we also learned about Gremlins. The first cut of Joe Dante's Gremlins was 4 hours.
What's the runtime now of Nope? It's
2 hours and 15 minutes.
Okay, so it's double, basically.
So double. So the Gordy's home subplot had a celebrity stalker of the child actress who we got to see his house with like a bunch of pictures of him having pictures of the child actress in his house. And we got to see him gearing up to go to the Gordy's home taping. And then he's in the audience in the Gordy's home taping, watching the child actress. So just like, you could see he's like exploring exploitation and, the violence that comes from that in a different way, but so the stalker is the one in the test cut that they had audiences comment on. The stalker was the one who shot Gordy, not police that they imply with like a sound effect of a siren. So there was this whole subplot of a celebrity stalker of the child actress that gets her face ripped off that didn't make the final cut, but they shot it.
Okay.
So that's very weird. That would be a very different movie. And
the stalker was Danny McBride.
Oh man, don't tell me that.
Oh my God. But what do you think's instructive about that, Jamie? I mean, you've probably seen scripts that do stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see it's almost just like a different version of the same thing where I don't know why this popped into my head because there's nothing like this, but a movie like Magnolia that has these different storylines that are going on, all about the same thing and all a little weirder. That's almost what that feels like. Like let's introduce a whole new thread that has all these different things going. It's just a different feel of a movie. It feels, this feels more commercial. The movie we got feels more commercial. That feels more independent and like an exploration of a theme kind of movie.
It sort of fits though, right? Like a stalker's obsessed with fame.
It fits, right? You can see why it was created, but you can also see that it doesn't fit the feel of the rest of the movie. So it's almost like a tone thing.
And
like a genre thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just a mechanical you have to make this movie shorter thing.
So this is so Angel, the tech guy, was written as a happy-go-lucky Geek Squad employee. And then in the actor's audition, he played him as a disgruntled retail employee who didn't give a shit about his customers. And Jordan Peele rewrote the entire Angel character for that actor and his vision of it. So before it was like a way goofier, way more comic relief, like overt comic relief, stereotypical UFO nut. And he made him a Geek Squad guy who just so happened to have an interest in UFOs. So I thought that was a really interesting note and how these things change over time.
Right.
There was a subplot surrounding Emerald's quest for fame, making internet videos that weren't UFOs. So they shot scenes. There's whole deleted scenes that he said will probably be on the Blu-ray of her making other videos that have nothing to do with UFOs to show that she's like obsessed with going viral. So you can see why that, it has nothing to do with the goal of capturing she's in the A story side of things. If you add that, it diverts us from the monster, right? Like, I guess it fits the theme, right? But,
here's something else about that. And I don't know if you see this a lot, Jimmy, and maybe it's just, this is almost autobiographical, but how many scripts have you read today, or have I written or something that have somebody wants to go viral Instagrammer character?
Yeah, it's like it's a new thing, right? Like, we got to go like, you always have a character who's like, they're got a comic obsession with going viral. Yeah.
So many scripts have it. And
it's almost like cliche. Yeah.
I know it reflects our time, but it's like one of these things that, how many scripts how do we really want to see that over and over and over?
I would say, you know what? Now that you pointed out, I would say I read at least one out of every 4 that have a character.
I was gonna go probably 25%.
Yeah, one out of every 4. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. There was a subplot they shot surrounding Antler's character's quest for the impossible shot. And when he's at home, it was focused on his failed attempts at the impossible shot, I guess, with footage and stuff of he's going through old footage and looking at the impossible shot he couldn't get, with stuff like that. So that sort of informs more why we were seeing that weird footage that was like, what the hell is he looking at? Like,
right.
Tiger wrestling a python. Like, what, so you could see how like that might fit, but again, it makes it a more streamlined experience since that's less focused on the alien threat.
All 3 of us walked away with him being the person looking for the impossible shot without that edit,
without all that
the
backstory, right? We didn't need it.
You could see though in that more loosey artsy movie where you give like his whole life, you know what I mean? Like you make him a full blown.
You know what?
Character.
I wouldn't hate that either.
I wouldn't hate that either.
I wouldn't hate it.
Right?
Not a problem. Just a different, like Jimmy said before, a different tone, a different.
Yep. That's a different.
I watched Michael Wincott read a phone book. So
yeah. Honestly. So okay, the scenes where we see inside the monster weren't scripted and weren't shot during the actual production. They were decided upon in post, and then they brought in and shot some footage for it after they already had an edit. So that's very interesting. Cool. So you can kind of feel that maybe they were like, it lacks a horror beat. We need another. It's those whammies, right, Jamie? You gotta have those. Yeah.
It's funny too, because there's something about those scenes that I was a little on the fence. I don't hate them. And I don't necessarily, there's something about them that seem a little sillier than some. I don't know what it is. Like they almost make me laugh.
They're very, it's a tightrope of crossing the line between.
It's almost like something you'd see, not quite this, but in like a trauma movie or something. Like they all get sucked up in the thing and they're getting munched, and it's like,
I think that's intentional to some degree. I mean, let's remember Jordan Peele is a master comedian.
Yeah,
and I definitely don't think those are supposed to be funny though. They're supposed to be the scariest. Funny. I think they were supposed to be the scariest scenes in the movie.
I have a weird sense of humor, but to me, I'm kind of laughing when I see this.
As a huge fan of his comedy, he often dips into stuff like that. To me, I mean, that's not supposed to be laugh out loud hilarious, but I think there is a comedic beat to some of it. To me, there was. I also might be weird, Jamie. So.
Well, but that
certainly am.
That's but that's another thing that's kind of, interesting to think about when you're watching movies. Like even Jordan Peele, they shot the whole movie and they were like, you know what? We don't have enough horror beats here. We need to add some horror. And so they went back and they kept polishing, right? That's basically another rewrite. They rewrote the script again in post.
It could be one of those things where a lot of the people in the test screenings didn't understand it was an animal. They were like, are these people getting abducted and then murdered? Or what is this? And so they kind of had to make it look like it was eating them or whatever.
They had to get you inside to be like, okay, this is a little bit more orientation about what's happening. Yep, that's true. It was turning off some viewers, too much mystery. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And this is the big one. Well, this isn't the big one. This is the last one, is what I meant to say. The third act was much longer. I got the quote from the editor. He said, they tried a lot more different things to get that Oprah shot. And I hope now it's been honed to the version that feels earned and satisfying without overstaying its welcome, is what Nicholas Monsauer said. So it was a lot longer, a lot more. A whole bunch
of executing the new plan.
They had a 10-point finale.
They had a 10-point finale.
Yeah.
And they cut it down to 5. So those are, I like learning this stuff because I think, the power of rewriting. The original DeLorean was a water heater that didn't go anywhere. And
there was a nuclear power plant at one point too.
There was,
right?
There was a nuclear power plant, third act. Like your favorite movie took many drafts to get there, even after filming. So
I would say in my experience, most edits or reshoots are usually in my world, because we're so cheap, it's more ADR than reshoots or something, come for clarity. It's all about clarity. So like in the case that, like I said, we don't understand if it's an animal or not. What is it? Is the aliens murdering these people? And it's like, oh, we need something else.
Let's show it. Let's show it like literally digesting.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that might be a thing that you read it on the page. It's very clear what's happening. You execute it. You film it. And now all of a sudden we need something to explain what the fuck is happening. Yeah.
Because sometimes it's kind of the opposite of what you're taught in screenwriting. Like on the nose dialogue is bad, right? But then when the director shoots it, he doesn't get the subtextual part, or the actor doesn't show the subtextual part the way they're supposed to. So then in ADR, you just write the on the nose line and you put it in. Yeah.
It's the tape in Ring that they put on a piece of masking tape copy. Before she puts it in the machine.
Right. It's kind of what I said about how you get notes about the mythology of the creature too, because a lot of studio notes are also about clarity before you shoot. So it's like let's make sure everybody knows what this is. Let's not leave it up to the imagination. And I'm not saying that's good. That's where a good director comes in and balances out. They're right on this one, they're wrong on this one.
But it informs the decision that was made in the movie we ended up seeing.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, I think that's everything, guys.
Yeah. Woo! Another Jordan Peele film. I look forward to more.
He's kind of been a backbone of our show with his 3 movies.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But I guess that's everything. Do you guys have anything you want to say or plug at the end here?
I got nothing to plug. How about you, Jamie?
I'm trying to think. What do I have to plug? I will be at the Austin Film Festival at the end of October, if anybody's going.
Awesome.
So I will be there. It's like the weekend of Halloween.
Wear your writer's Blockbusters shirt.
I was actually thinking, because I don't own one, I was thinking I'm going to buy one for it to take.
I actually took them down, but I'll put them back up if you want to buy one.
Yeah, put them up.
I changed my t-shirt site, so
I was actually talking to the listeners who might be going. I wasn't talking to Jamie.
No, I was actually.
The band wears the band shirt. That's exactly who I am.
So I was totally. I changed my shirt site to all comedy just because I don't want to mark. But I can make a separate site for just for like shit like that. If people want me to, I can do that.
Okay, gotcha.
I was trying to just make comedy t-shirts.
You mean the writers' Blockbuster shirts weren't like flying off the shelves?
They weren't flying off the shelves.
No, they weren't.
Oh
I didn't sell enough that I wanted a comedy theme. That's all.
So what's the truth? Did you sell one? did you sell even one?
I sold 2.
Okay.
Hey, we have 2 listeners out there who bought
buy
t-shirts.
So I took all the Thunder Grunt shirts off of there. It's just comedy t-shirts for me. But if people really want to t-shirts, let me know. Tweet at me.
I'll come to every recording with my It Tracks Man shirt.
I still have the files. You can always get shirts. I can make them.
I think one of the saddest things was like they put up I signed a bunch of Save the Cat books, and it was well after. This is the big problem. We realized it was well after we published them. So most of the people that really wanted them already bought one. I think they sold like 2. I signed 500,
They
or
sold
something.
like 2, right?
And
I got one of them sitting on my shelf, James.
yeah. Well, you bought one of the signed ones. Really?
I'm joking.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, I have an unsigned one.
Because the problem with the signed one, you have to buy it through Save the Cat, which means you have to pay shipping, and it takes longer and it's
Jesus.
a hassle. Whereas you can just go to Amazon and press a button, buy a signed one. So anyway,
Well, either way, eventually I will have a Patreon if you ever want to support the show
Nice.
and what I pay to keep this running. But yes, the t-shirts aren't up anymore. I'm sorry. I made it
No.
on that. I can't help it. I don't like, if anyone hasn't noticed, I'm not big on like things I love and making money from them. I think it corrupts it. And I don't want to ever corrupt it that much.
that's
So
fine.
I'm very hectic about it.
I'll just wear my Script Notes t-shirt off. And thanks a lot.
But yeah, with that, I think we got everything, guys.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have just listened to Writer's Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring 2 professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.